Descent of the Demon God by Hanjo Wiolia. Chapter 23. Portent. Part 1. Memories of the past flashed through Jiam Jongso's mind. In the middle of a dark night, a man with sparse gray hair hurriedly packed something. He was carrying luggage and opened the door. When the young one saw that, the man stroked his hair. Things have changed. No, we will do our very best to put everything back in place. Sai, now you are the head of the family. Take good care of your mom. He raised his head and looked at the man with tears in his eyes. A face which was blurry even in his memory, the man bent down to the young one's level and said, "If I don't make it back, forget all the memories you have of me. And live your life like an ordinary person." As the words kept coming, the tears which the young one was holding back began to flow. The man with gray hair spoke with a sad voice this time. "If I knew this would happen, I would have passed everything down to you. No. This is better. This is the end. Unless it's a real crisis, you should never reveal what you learned to anyone. If I don't come back, move, remember. Goodbye, my son." Asterisk. Pang. A small wave of chi stroked his head. He was lost in his memory. Jiam Jongso looked at Chen Yoan, unable to calm his emotions. What is this person's identity? It has been 27 years already. Contrary to his fears, no one recognized the martial arts he used. It was as if the martial arts were erased from everyone's mind. Damn it. He didn't know how to deal with it. He never dreamed that something found in Beijing would be recognized in Shenyang, which is closer to the border. Should I run away? That was a nice option, but impossible. The nano bomb was in his body, and this monster would catch him even if not for the bomb. Jiam Jongso bit his lip. There was no other option. He had to fight and run. Keek. Jiam Jongso parked the car. Cars were passing by, but not many people were there. Jiam Jongso opened his mouth without turning his head. Who are you? He just recognized his martial arts. Either an enemy or an ally. Jiam Jongso was quickly trying to judge the situation. He was aware that nothing could be done. The only hope he had was because of what Chen Yoan said. No matter how many years have passed, there isn't a single person in Murim who uses the expression Sky Demon Order anymore. Black Sky Company or demonic cult. Only the members of the order used the official name. While he was nervously looking into the mirror, Chen Yoan said, "Come outside." He was puzzled, but he didn't have much choice. Jiam Jongso stood in front of Chen Yoan, who was standing to the right of the parked RV. He couldn't even look into Chen Yoan's eyes. That was when Chen Yoan said, "The skills you learned, show them all." Huh? Don't make me say it twice and unfold them. Jiam Jongso frowned at the sudden request. Although it was said that there were a few people, cars only passed rarely, and using sword skills was still difficult. What is he thinking? He couldn't figure it out. After hesitating for a while, he finally gave up. Taking a moment, his brilliant kick cut through the air, and the technique appeared. Pack. Gorgeous and quick kicks one after another. A martial art that couldn't be seen by others, yet Jiam Jongso always trained. He took pride in his secret martial art. When he was done, the words that came out of Chen Yoan's mouth were, "It's a mess." Chen Yoan shook his head with a disappointed look. Hating those words, Gun Jongso said, "What are you even talking about?" Surely the monster recognized the technique, but he couldn't perform it, yet he called it a mess. Chen Yoan said, "I don't know where you learned the technique, but why does the formation change so much with each attack? And where did you sell the other two techniques?" Ah? Jiam Jongso's expression changed. Actually, he learned the technique at a very young age, when he was 4 or 5, he himself wasn't sure if he was doing it correctly. And he knew that it could be wrong too. But in the end, the words, 2 techniques, caught his attention. How do you know that? It was then. Shoo. Huh. Chen Yuan suddenly grabbed his wrist. Before he could even try to shake it off, energy penetrated through his wrist. Whoa. Yuck. If he resisted the energy, he would end up with an internal injury. He stood there without being able to fight the opponent. Chen Yuan, who scanned his body, finally said, "Why didn't you learn the pure genuine mind method?" "No, it would have been better if you learned it." Jiangso was at a loss for words. He never imagined that someone would know about it. The pure genuine mind method is paired with the pure kick that he had learned. You are killing the technique. If Jiangso knew the entire technique, he would use mind cultivation methods along with the technique, but he couldn't. It was because a certain internal energy cultivation method was needed to use the technique. Jiangso asked with a trembling voice. What the hell are you? How can you? He couldn't understand. It was embarrassing that someone else knew more about the technique than the heir of the clan. No wonder he was shocked. Thanks to Nano, Chen Yuan had more than 70% of the demonic cult's techniques in his head. And he even remembered the highest techniques of the other clans. It was no exaggeration to say that Chen Yuan is a moving martial arts technique book. That's one thing, but there's another reason why Chen Yuan understood it particularly. Becky. It was because of a martial artist Becky, one of the 6 swords, and a supporter of Chen Yuan. Becky, a member of the 6 swords, was one of the closest aides of Lord Chen Yuan. Having met someone who succeeded in his technique, Chen Yuan couldn't turn a blind eye. If Becky saw this, he would have been angry. This was nothing less than trash of a descendant of Becky, who was a perfectionist. Maybe the teaching wasn't accurate. Who are you? By any chance, do you know my father? Instead of answering, Chen Yuan asked, "Are you a descendant of the Pure Kick clan of the main cult?" Too many questions. To call it the main cult meant that Chen Yuan was presenting himself as a member of the Sky Demon Order. Jiangso, who heard that, spoke in a trembling voice. Are you really a senior in the cult?" The voice was full of genuine welcoming. When he first heard the words Sky Demon Order, he was confused and disturbed, thinking that the man was trying to lure him out. "Answer me." When Chen Yuan didn't deny it, Jiangso clasped his hands together. Pack. Jiangso of the Pure Kick clan greets the senior. But as soon as the words were finished, Chen Yuan made an abrupt action. Grab. Quack. He grabbed his neck. At him, who was flustered, Chen Yuan said, "Are you trying to deceive me till the end? If what you are saying now is true, you were never a member of the cult." Clench. Jiangso's eyes went wider as Chen Yuan began to clench harder. One last time, he wanted to test if Chen Yuan is really a member of the Sky Demon Order, and it seemed to be true. Jiangso opened his mouth with difficulty. "As senior, I was trying to confirm if you were really from the cult." I apologize, Cook, apologize. Pack. When he said that, Chen Yuan released his hand. Despite not being caught for a long time, Jiangso coughed and then took the pose again while bowing his head. Jiangso of the Pure Kick clan of the Great Sky Demon Order formally greets the senior. Right. The name wasn't Jiang, but Beck. Jiangso or Jiangso thought that if Chen Yuan was really a member of the cult, he would realize the mistake in his name. If Chen Yuan accepted the first greeting, then he was an enemy. But now, when he found out that the man in front of him really was a member of the Sky Demon Order, he couldn't hold back his tears. I am really happy to have met the senior of the cult. Chen Yuan smiled a little as he looked at Jiangso crying. He was so worried when there were no traces of the Sky Demon Order, but he unexpectedly found a descendant of Becky, one of his closest aides. A descendant of Becky, this is nice. For the first time since he fell into the unknown time axis, he was happy. Of course, it wasn't just about feeling good. Why did a descendant of the Pure Kick clan of the Great Sky Demon Order turn into a public security official? Chen Youwen didn't like the status of Baek Jong-so, who was an official yet a spy at the same time. He knew that too. Baek Jong-so's expression darkened. He thought that he was just under suspicion, but it seemed like Yun Mun-pyong noticed the truth. Otherwise, Chen Youwen wouldn't have known. There were some circumstances. Circumstances? His voice was mixed with anger. It seemed like the descendant had some kind of problem. Chen Youwen was about to ask, but Baek Jong-so said, "Senior. Before that, would it be fine if this junior asked something?" Jong-so had something he was really curious about. If Chen Youwen knew his martial arts this well, he guessed that he should be related to his father or someone higher in the Sky Demon Order. "I permit you." As the permission fell, Baek Jong-so asked, "Thank you. Actually, I'm sorry for referring to you as just senior, so I would like to ask you about your name or title when the Black Sky Company was still alive." He wondered about his real identity. Despite him being young in the past, Jong-so still remembered the names of several people his father was close to. Since he didn't remember the face, he thought he might remember something if his title or name came up. However, Chen Youwen didn't answer. "Shoo." The black handguard on his right wrist gently changed. Cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. It was shocking. As the blackguard moved, it took the form of a sword. Baek Jong-so's eyes widened at the appearance of the exquisite sword, which was giving out a black hue. This is... Baek Jong-so's two eyes were staring at the text written in the middle of the black sword. Sky Demon Sword. For a moment, it felt like a thrill ran through his body. He fell onto his knees and cried out. Baek Jong-so greets the current Chun Ma of the Great Sky Demon Order. Chapter 24. Portent, 2. 5 years old. He wasn't old enough to remember things. The face was blurry, and most of those memories were erased after he reached his 30s. But there are things which humans never forget. The Sky Demon Order, which has a long history, has several legends running around it. When Baek Jong-so was young, he fell asleep while listening to the stories that his father told. Even when he was this old, he vaguely remembered it. When the disappeared Sky Demon Sword and its owner appear, the glory of the Sky Demon Order will soar above the sky. That was the legend, though it wasn't taken seriously. Like how a child believes that Santa Claus exists, there was a time when he believed that the man with the Sky Demon Sword would appear one day. A legend. But with age, it changed. When he witnessed the legend buried in the corner of his mind as the black sky company disintegrated and he wandered aimlessly, he was overcome with emotions. To see the Sky Demon Sword with my own eyes. Tears. Baek Jong-so's two eyes were becoming heavy and swollen. No one knew just how many times he had cried. To him, the existence of Chun Ma was no less than a god. While a vehicle from the outskirts entered the northern city of Shenyang, Baek Jong-so told Chen Youwen everything he knew. My father, the head, left my mother and me to wander aimlessly for years. The news of his father, who was supposed to return but suddenly didn't come. Less than a week later, the young kid left Beijing with his mother. I was young, but one thing is certain. You were being chased. As Chen Youwen said, Baek Jong-so was pursued. They couldn't settle down for almost 5 years and had to move from place to place every 2 to 3 months, or sometimes every day or two. Then we came to Shenyang. This shared a close border with the Korean government and was farthest from central China. There were more branches of the Public Security and Murim Association, but it was better than central China. But that didn't mean that it was without risks. It was only 5 years ago that everything became fine. But the face of Baek Jong-so was known to some extent. Thanks to that, the situation of not being able to settle happened, but it only happened inside Shenyang. At that time, my adoptive father reached out to us. He must have been the one who taught you that martial arts. The martial arts that Baek Jong-so first used. The one Chen Yoan had no idea about. It incorporated boldly striking the opponent's face. It was quite a crude technique. Must be from the forces of evil. At those words, Baek Jong-so bit his tongue. He knew it from the first time he saw it. Despite being Chen Ma, the man was really clever. He was one of the middle bosses of Black Wolf Group, one of the 4 organizations of the forces of evil in Shenyang. My adoptive father was quite well known in the forces of evil. Somehow, they managed to avoid the eyes of the pursuers. As a result, he had no choice but to come into contact with people of the other world unintentionally. Then finally, the adoptive man decided to officialize the relationship. At first, he was only trying to arrange the place for us to hide, but fell in love with my mother and actively pursued her. He's a great person. Because he liked the woman whom no one believed in. Perhaps that was the reason. Perhaps his mother was too tired of running away. He asked my mother to let him be a part of my life, but said he had no intention of taking away my actual father's memories, and that is how my family turned out. The following story could be predicted. As he was from the other world, the adoptive father helped wash away the identity of Baek Jong-so and his mother. He introduced a professional mask maker to her, as she refused to undergo plastic surgery. He knew. The fact that Baek Jong-so knew a mask maker was true. Baek Jong-so continued to speak. And 15 years after the mess, peace came to my mother and me. But that didn't last long. Baek Jong-so's adoptive father was killed in a war with another organization inside the forces of evil, the Firehead. Fortunately, there was an unwritten rule that among those in organizations, families are to be left untouched, but still, the loss of a family member was too shocking for them. Firehead. Chen Yoan stroked his chin. From that day on, I had to do all sorts of odd jobs to make a living. As he had lived the life as a fugitive and the son of a boss of the forces of evil, he naturally came closer to the dark side of the world than the light side. His means of livelihood was stealing. I didn't have any intention of doing it. The reason he stole, there was a reason why he entered the house of an executive of the public security. My mother never told me anything about my father, or the ancestors, or the Black Sky Company. Until the age of 20, Baek Jong-so had a lot of friction with his mother because of it. However, as time passed, he realized that he couldn't just bring up the story of the Sky Demon Order to his mother. In the end, I had no choice but to figure out how it collapsed. He believed that the public security too was involved in the dissolution of the Black Sky Company. So he searched the homes of officials of the public security. But I was in a pinch, with no parents, and I needed to make money. Baek Jong-so robbed the house of a public security official while trying to dig up information. In this era, expensive items were put on the black market as earning cash would make it traceable. The first time was difficult, but the second and third times, not so much. At some point, he turned into a professional thief until he was caught. I was such an idiot. I didn't even foresee that they would go after my mother once they got me. Clench. Baek Jong-so grabbed the steering wheel. His teary eyes could be seen. Was that the reason? And that was how he turned into a spy for the public security and infiltrated the 6 Road Toys. With his mother being held hostage, he had no choice. In the end, it's always the same. Chen Yoan shook his head. Even the public security, called the official government of this era, didn't hesitate to act dirty. Barely managing to calm his emotions, Baek Jong-so said, "You are currently Chen Ma. I know that this might be disrespectful, but I'm not capable of rescuing my mother, who is being held captive. That is why I'm in this situation, but my mother is a member of the cult. Baek Jong-so wanted to hold on to even the shortest straw. He knew how burdensome it would be to ask someone else to rescue his mother, who was being held hostage inside the public security. Still, even then, he wanted to lean on the one called Chun-ma. Current Chun-ma. Actually, it's supposed to be second-generation Chun-ma. Of course, Baek Jong-so couldn't know that Chen Yo-won had time-traveled. And Chen Yo-won didn't want to say it either. There was insufficient trust between them to reveal such sensitive facts. My mother is more aware of the cult's circumstances than I am. If Chun-ma helps, she will be more helpful than. Enough. Sorry? Baek Jong-so's face darkened. If Chun-ma didn't help, then there was no way to save his mother. That was when Chen Yo-won said, "How do you get in contact with them?" Ah. The disappointed face brightened up. Because he knew what it meant. Are you really going to help? Don't make me say it twice. He's so nice. Once again, he was emotional. It had been a long time since his adoptive father died and since he last felt the feeling of dependability and trust in someone. Chen Yo-won clicked his tongue and said, "You are not even a homemaker, so stop crying." Superscript 1 Yep. Keek. Baek Jong-so responded, and turned the steering wheel to the left and took a U-turn. Chen Yo-won looked into the front mirror with puzzled eyes when Baek Jong-so spoke with a smile. "Isn't there a place we need to stop by before that?" Chen Yo-won looked at himself. His trademark is long hair which comes down to his waist. The body, hair, and skin are from one's parents, so keeping them away from harm is the beginning of filial duty. That was the saying of the nobles. Cutting it would be terrifying for people in the age that Chen Yo-won was from. However, Chen Yo-won was a Murim warrior who wasn't bound by the nobles' doctrines. "I'm not used to it." His appearance was awkward. Since this era's information was transferred into his brain, he couldn't help but realize that his long hair keeps drawing too much attention. It isn't just that. Chen Yo-won looked around with annoyed eyes. From a woman called a hairstylist who cuts hair to the women around who were squinting their eyes, Chen Yo-won thought that the information he got from Nato wasn't accurate. Yeah. Indeed, a man's life is his hair. Isn't he so cool? I thought he was some rock star, but it doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like he's from some large corporation either. Ah. Look at the white skin. He's totally my style. Yeah, you have a boyfriend. However, he soon found out the reason for the gazes. Even though they were whispering, they could be heard. He looked difficult to approach because of his sharp eyes, but Chen Yo-won was quite tall and had a handsome face. He came to the side of Baek Jong-so, who was waiting for him. "It's all done. I did the calculations beforehand." And then he looked at Chen Yo-won, who looked at his reflection with a puzzled look. He really didn't want to get his hair cut. Does he hate it? That said, his lips slowly raised. A gray RV driving on the road. Chen Yo-won was changed with a new hairstyle. A black suit, shoes and a long coat from a department store turned him into a fashion icon of the era. Judging from the outward appearance and the aura he gave off, he looked like a charismatic young CEO. It was difficult at first, but the end result pleased Chen Yo-won too. It will take a while to get used to it. Since they bought extra suits, there wouldn't be any problems for a while. The clothes he wore were folded and kept in the department store's bag, so that he could wear it when he gets back to his original era. Beep. 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 The phone didn't connect. Baek Jong-so was feeling troubled. Finally, he tried to call the mask expert but couldn't contact them either. Well, it wasn't a typical story. It was a place run by someone from the other world, so visiting wouldn't work if not contacted in advance. It's strange. We should be in touch by now. Is there some problem? It seems like he isn't there. Really? Or, should we just go there? Chen Yuan shook his head at the question. He needed the best mask, and he wasn't in a hurry right now. Some things had to be done before that. Rather, is there a place for training and stuff? Sorry? Training? You practice martial arts too, so you must have a place to train. Ah. At Chen Yuan's words, Baek Jongso remembered a place. The house he initially lived in. Although his adoptive father belonged to the forces of evil, he was a warrior and designed his home for training. But there was one problem. The place where my home is, there may be CCTV cameras and wiretapping devices installed by the Bureau. They must have been installed by the public security for surveillance when his mother was taken. After infiltrating the 6 Road Toys as a secret mission, I was staying at their hideout, so I haven't been there in a while, but it's probably the same. Okay? Then that works. Yes? Let's go to your house. Yes. Baek Jongso was skeptical of Chen Yuan's instructions, but he decided to go along with it for the time being. In his head, he hoped that they would go and contact the public security to find a way to save his mother, but he decided to stay silent and not nag at Chen Ma. 1 hour later, Baek Jongso's house was located in the southern part of Shenyang City. It looked like an ordinary house from outside, but when entered, there was a training room of 49 meters. The floor, which had been made with cement, was full of traces of water. However, on one side of the training room was an unusual machine. It was round like a barrel, and there was a cushion on the floor of its center. It was enough space for one person to enter and sit cross-legged. What is that? Unknown. At Chen Yuan's question, Nano revealed that it didn't have any data regarding it. Bewildered, Baek Jongso scratched his head and said, "This is a little outdated, but it's good for meditation. My adoptive father spent a lot of money to buy that." For meditation? Yes. It's an old model, but even then, it's okay. Is this your first time seeing this? Baek Jongso's eyes went wide. Naturally, he thought that there was no way for a person like Chen Yuan to be unaware of this. But he really didn't know? Baek Jongso was puzzled and approached the machine and pressed the button on it. Whoa! The LED lights attached to the top of the cylinder turned on, and the machine began to work. At that moment, even Chen Yuan couldn't hide his surprise. The moment the machine began, the energy of nature was condensing inside that cylinder. Pure energy is condensing into the interior of the mechanical device. Yes. I know. Chen Yuan was more sensitive to the flow of energy than Nano. To Chen Yuan, who was shocked, Baek Jongso said, "It's just a meditation point, but the effect of circulating the energy is weak. But if you go inside, you can probably see the effect." The purpose of the device was to just assist during internal energy cultivation. At that time, Chen Yuan nodded his head as he was curious about it. He was someone who had thought that the energy in nature had faded away in this era, and that was why it wasn't enough for the Murim warriors to build up their levels. But he never dreamed that such a device existed. Nano. If you don't know, that means that this is definitely a different time axis. This was shocking. The era of Nano was farther away. However, even in that era, the level of the warriors was terribly low because there were no such devices for internal energy. This is interesting. The gaps can be filled in this way. In a way, he wanted to praise the wisdom of the later generations. Is this device used by most Murim warriors? Well, not entirely. I don't know the exact information because people used to pay a lot for the old models and buy them, but maybe only half of the Murim. Other than this, some supplements are available at a lower cost. But those too are expensive in a way. In this era, the Murim seemed to make significant investments to obtain internal energy. As a result, they had to make a living and earn money. Looking at the device, Baek Jong-so felt fortunate. This is the only help we got from the CCTV cameras they installed. Since it's such a precious device, it would have been stolen long ago. Despite being a vacant house for such a long time, because of the surveillance of the public security, the device stayed here. Baek Jong-so asked, in telepathy. But, why did you want to come, Baek Jong-so, who was trying to ask something, went silent. Come to think of it. He wasn't sure if the Bureau had some kind of device that could tap into their telepathic messages. It was when he was thinking about what to do. Papak. Quack. At the sudden sealing of his blood points, Baek Jong-so fell to the floor. He was unable to speak or move because his blood points were sealed. Chen Yowon looked down at him with a subtle expression. Why? Baek Jong-so's eyes trembled. A house about 500 yards away. It looked like just another house, but the inside was different. There were around 10 men in uniforms, people of the Public Security Bureau, and 3 men in regular clothes monitoring. A man in gray jumper crossed his arms and looked at the man behind him, who was in his 40s with sagged cheeks, and said, "Team leader. Look at the living room monitor." At those words, the team leader with sagged cheeks looked at the CCTV screen. Baek Jong-so was lying on the floor. What happened there? He seems to have been hit by an undercover person. I know that too. No. Why did he turn up there all of a sudden? Turn up the volume. Yes. Tat-a-tack. The man in front of the monitor tapped the keyboard. The voice from the wiretapping device in the living room grew louder. A low-pitched voice could be heard. Don't blame it. It's the public security. The 3 people who were listening went stiff. It seemed like the man inside the house discovered them. They had to report an emergency. Well, thanks anyway. If you report to the public security, they will come and take care of me. At those words, the team leader frowned. Isn't he completely caught? Apparently, it seemed like there was only one infiltrator, and his identity was known by the one who had fallen. Which meant that something had to be done. It was then. Pack. Chen Yuan placed his palm towards the dantian point of Baek Jong-so. And mumbled. Since you are going to die, I might as well take it from your body. As soon as the people heard that, the team leader got up and shouted. This is insane. It looks like that bastard knows how to do dantian energy absorption. Send the crew in and arrest him. Dantian energy absorption. It was a type of technique where one could forcibly absorb another person's chi. It wasn't a normal way of taking internal energy, and it had side effects too. Still, for a short period of time, it was effective. There are people inside the forces of evil who have learned it from time to time. However, it was a very objectionable technique to the other Murim people, so even people of the forces of evil didn't use it. Clap. At the command of their team leader, the team took out their machine guns and boarded a black van outside the house. The bus carried them to the house quickly. Shit. How did this happen? The team leader was nervous at the thought that if he didn't hurry, the infiltrator would run. If the identity of the 6 road toys was discovered, but their spy didn't find it out, he had to be rescued. Kwang. The mobile strike team quickly came out of the bus, which arrived in front of Baek Jong-so's home. Kwang. They broke the front door of the house and entered the yard. 4 mobile strikers pulled something out from their waists. Anesthetic gas bombs. Throw. CRRR. The windows were broken, and the gas bombs were thrown in. Poos. It was set to emit gas so that the entire place would be filled with thick smoke. Helmed mobile strikers rushed in. Tack. The team leader took out a gas mask from a silver case and put it on his face. Then he pulled out his gun and tried to move. It was then. Quack. Quack. Ack. Screams could be heard from the wireless earphone he was wearing. The team leader couldn't hide his shock. What is this? They had thrown in the anesthetic bombs. If the infiltrator inhaled it, then he should have been weak. But there seemed to be some problem. Who? Quack. At the screams which followed, the team leader hesitated about what had to be done. He had to go in to figure out what was happening, but he didn't want to suffer like those inside were. Damn it. First of all, we need to retreat. Sanyang. Start the BU, team leader. Team member Sanyang hurriedly shouted. Tack. The eyes of the team leader flickered. Someone gently placed a hand on his shoulder, making an eerie feeling run down his body. Biting his lip, he turned his head. How is? Chen Yuan placed his hand on his shoulder. With a smile on his face, he spoke to the team leader, who had turned pale. Look at this. What? That was when the team leader knew that this was a trap. Chapter 25. Portent. Part 3. Inside the bus that the agents of the public security were riding. Ugh. Baek Jonso groaned as if the gas he had inhaled wasn't properly removed. He had inhaled the gas from the anesthetic bombs as he was in a state where his blood points were sealed, and as a result, he was experiencing numbness. Fortunately, there was an antidote, and he managed to take it, but his body was still a mess. His internal energy had depleted. He hid it from me too. Huh. Baek Jongso clicked his tongue as he shook his head. At the same time, he thought. How could he use the surveillance cameras and wiretapping devices this way? He is as smart as a spy. Thanks to Chen Yuan's mind, the Public Security Bureau's mobile strike team was caught. In a way, he thought it was for the best that he wasn't told the plan, as his reaction was more natural. Quack. That was when he heard a groan. Baek Jongso got out of the bus and looked. Are there 12 people? The man in a gray jumpsuit was clenching his teeth, trying to overcome the pain. Puck. The finger dug into the man's right shoulder came out. The pain was unbearable. Chen Yuan was the one who inflicted such pain on him. Qua, ugh, ack. The man let out a ragged and raspy breath as the finger was pulled out. Glaring at Chen Yuan, he shouted. Ha, ha, HAA, you bastard. Do you think that we'll start talking if you torture us like this? Chen Yuan nodded at his words. Surely these people were well trained in enduring torture. From 10 mobile strikers to 2 agents in civilian clothes, he had inflicted the same pain on them all, but no one spoke. Of course, to some extent, Chen Yuan changed the severity of torture. If he was in the Muramara, he would have plucked out their nails or cut off their fingers one by one, but now he just used his finger to penetrate their flesh. If Chen Yuan's former subordinates saw this, they might have said, "Our Lord has become gentle." Well, your mouth seems too heavy for you to speak. Then should we see if your boss will be the same as you? 1. You jerk, Puck. The man who was drenched in blood lost consciousness. Chen Yuan turned his head. The team leader with sagged cheeks was looking at him with a pale face. As he watched his team members suffer one after the other helplessly, this was a natural reaction. Shit, that wicked bastard. The team leader still couldn't help falling into the trap Chen Yuan laid. But he wasn't the kind to blame himself and feel bad. That was when Chen Yuan approached him and asked. I will ask you the same question. As long as you answer, I will send you away. As soon as he said that, the index finger of Chen Youwen touched the right shoulder of the team leader. The team leader's breathing quickened. Fuck. The guys have endured this, and if I can't stand this, it'll be shameful for me. Chen Youwen asked. GM Jongso's mother. Where did you hide her? I don't know. Yeah. Right. Puck. Chen Youwen's finger pierced the team leader's shoulder. He was prepared for it, but the pain was too great. Quack. He seemed to understand why the other agents had clenched their teeth. Fuck. Fuck. It was just one finger, yet he was cursing. As soon as Chen Youwen's finger came out of his flesh, the clothes near his shoulder were soaked in blood. Now, the finger went to his left shoulder. Once again. GM Jongso's mother. Where did you hide her? Shut up, fuck. I don't know you, Batar. Puck. Quack. Another scream with the finger digging in. With an expressionless face, Chen Youwen had his finger on the thigh this time. GM Jongso's mother. Where did you hide her? The team leader's face turned red as he urgently shouted. Wait. Wait. Are you going to answer? You bastard, do you think you can handle the after effects of this? That isn't the answer I want. Puck. Chen Youwen tried to push his finger in again. Startled, the team leader shouted. Do you have time to torture us like this? Chen Youwen looked puzzled as he asked. What are you saying? The team leader, who thought that he had drawn his attention, spoke in a calm voice. You made a mistake. Mistake? Do you think that if you destroy all the cameras and devices in the home, no one will know? As he said, the room was a mess. It was because Chen Youwen had removed all the devices. The team leader, convinced that his words worked on Chen Youwen, spoke with a sly smile. Do you think we are the only ones looking at the camera feed? You pretend to be smart, but you are stupid. You broke them and thought that no one would notice? Huh. All the power in the Public Security Bureau should be coming to this place at any moment. That's such a bluff. Quack, you think I'm bluffing? Why do you think they kept silent despite being tortured? They all waited patiently for the reinforcements to arrive. Chen Youwen looked into the man's eyes. His eyes were trembling, but he looked confident. Just then, Baek Jongso came into the living room. When Chen Youwen looked at him, Baek Jongso nodded. You're lucky. Tack. Chen Youwen lifted his finger from the thigh. And leaving him alone, he left the house. Eventually, the sound of the engine starting was heard from outside, along with the sound of the car departing. The team leader sighed in relief. Sigh, HAA. He was afraid of being introduced to the same pain again. He felt fortunate that his improvisation worked. I'm glad I deceived him. In fact, it was a lie to say that the Bureau would come. Despite being in the Bureau, this team operated secretly. For that reason, all the equipment and information have been disconnected from the headquarters. And that was why Chen Youwen tortured them, yet no one gave the information. Haha, still, I'm glad that everyone here is safe. I need to tell the head that the spy planted in the 6 road toys is, oh, what? Suddenly, something was odd. No matter how much he had bluffed about the Bureau, it was suspicious how all of them were spared. Damn it. I would have been hurt more. The team leader wriggled his body and picked up a piece of broken glass that had fallen on the ground. He had to cut the ropes, which were restraining his hands and feet. The team leader, who barely released himself, woke up his agents. Team leader. You're safe. We don't have time for small talk. We'll talk inside the bus and wake everyone up. At the impatient attitude of the team leader, the agent nodded and woke the others up. When everyone woke up, they hurried into the van. The bus departed, and the team leader explained what happened. Agent Sanyang spoke with a happy face. You're such a reliable person. Indeed, you're amazing, sir. I thought that they were smart, but how stupid. If they punctured the tires of the bus, we would have wasted more time too. TCH. They're stupid. The team leader scolded him. They aren't stupid. They didn't puncture the tires on purpose. Sorry? We were almost deceived. He's a really clever one. What do you mean? They let us go on purpose. They pretended to have gotten tricked by us as none of the equipment we had was traceable. At first, the team leader thought that he had deceived Chen Yuan. But then, it seemed strange. A person bold enough to kidnap them wouldn't give up so easily. Even if not for Chen Yuan, Jiam Zhongso, who was in his party, should be emotionally outraged by them giving up on his mother, but he was calm too. Then why? Can't he go to where the chief is? There's no way that clever bastard will go after them right away. He must have installed a tracking device in the bus. Damn it. Quickly search for the tracking device. Surprised by those words, Sanyang gave the order to the others. The team leader shook his head. Stop. They aren't idiots. They didn't install them in visible places. First, let's head to the nearest repair shop. Roger. The man driving searched for a place in the navigation system. The team leader wiggled his fingers with an anxious face. They had to rush to a repair shop. Remove the device and contact their chief. Shenyang, Public Security Bureau Director's office. Director Sang Yugun, who was holding a radio, was stiff. A man's voice could be heard from it, but it was hoarse. Click. Director. What should I do? They are at the repair shop and waiting for instructions. At that, the director stroked his chin. He got a report of the situation, which was completely different from what he expected, and it complicated his mind. Is it him again? When the order to investigate was given, he never expected it to turn out like this. He predicted that there would be problems, especially since he held the man's mother and asked him to act like a spy. What an annoying one you are. He looked at the picture of Chen Yuan on his desk. Like a loach, he was taking away everything the director planned. I don't know what kind of trick you used, but you crossed a line you shouldn't have. And if such a person was left alone, more problems would crop up. Having made a decision, the director pressed the button on the radio and said, Superintendent. Have the team leader stop them from disabling the tracking device. Click. Sorry? What is that? If the 6 road toys know he's a spy, then he is of no use to us. Click. Are you throwing him away? Superintendent Nung's voice was heavy. It wasn't that he was feeling regret or guilt about discarding the man, but it was disappointing that all the hard work they did would be in vain. Isn't that why we used him? Click. Yes. I'll send you a location, so have the team leader guide them there and gather the 4th and 5th teams and the special agents too. Click. Yes. Ah. The tech team just sent me some good stuff. I will send the file now. Director Sang Yugun turned on his monitor screen. A line that looked like a frequency and things like numbers were written underneath it. The detonation code of the MS bomb. The file's identity was the frequency code for the nanobomb. Looking at the screen, the director muttered. I never thought that it would be used this way. TCH. At the same time, an RV not far from the Public Security Bureau. Inside was a man intently listening to something through earphones. It was Li Myong, the 3rd team leader of the violent crime squads, who was suspended. I never thought that it would be used this way. TCH. It was the voice of the Director of Public Security that was coming in through the earphones. Li Myong had installed a wiretapping device in the director's office. As he was suspicious of the director the day he visited the office, Lee Myung had secretly installed the device. Sigh. This man was freaking out. This wiretapping device was a cheap product, yet unimaginable information came out of it. Damn it. What the hell is he doing? He couldn't help but feel disappointed when he discovered the other side of the bureau, which he never knew of. He thought the director was hiding something, but he never expected that words of destroying someone would come out of his mouth so easily. Asterisk. Lee Myung, who was worried, immediately turned the car around. BRRR. 1 hour later. The southern outskirts of Shenyang City. Not far from the wall of an abandoned factory. Most of the factories around seemed to have been destroyed by bombs, and there was only one unbroken. As the sun went down, the dark abandoned factory looked like a ghost residence. Keek. The door to the closed factory opened. The sound of 2 pairs of footsteps entering. Step, step. It was when the footsteps moved to the center. Bang. The open door closed. At the same time. Pat. LED lights turned on in the abandoned building, the dark space became bright. The lights in the middle showed 2 people, Chun Yeowon and Baek Jong-so. Don't move. You are under arrest. Clink. Clink. Numerous mobile strikers revealed themselves. More than 60 people aimed their machine guns at the 2 men from the second floor. Too many. Shocked, Baek Jong-so sent a message to Chun Yeowon. They came here following the tracking device, just as the public security expected. They knew that people would be hidden inside, but there were too many. Wahahaha. Then he heard a laugh. 3 men appeared among the mobile strikers. One familiar face. It was the man who was tortured by Chun Yeowon a little while back. Nung Do-myung. Baek Jong-so looked at the man next to the team leader with furious eyes. However, the other man called out. Jeom Jong-so, it felt sorrowful. The small, short middle-aged man with sad eyes was Nung Do-myung. One of the 2 superintendents of the Public Security Bureau's Special Task Force. The one who put Baek Jong-so into the 6 road toys as a spy. Chun Yeowon looked at someone else. Unlike the mobile strikers holding firearms, one man with curly hair held a gray sword and stared at Chun Yeowon. The one leading these men stepped forward and talked as if he enjoyed the moment. Stupid bastards. Did you think that we would be deceived by such nonsense? With those words, the team leader threw something on the floor. Traying. Baek Jong-so frowned. It was the tracking device they had installed on the bus. The team leader pointed to Chun Yeowon and spoke with a smile. Haha. I'll pay you back for before. It'll be really good. Chapter 26. Portent. Part 4. The eyes of the team leader, Go, looked at Chun Yeowon. Judging by the fact that he pointed and spoke emotionally, it seemed like he was furious about being tortured. Chun Yeowon looked at the team leader with his usual expression and tried to step forward. Stop. It would be in your best interest to not move. Pack. Team leader, Go hurriedly held out something he was holding in his hand. A small monitor with a terminal. Why should I? The team leader shouted at Chun Yeowon, who didn't understand what the monitor was. I heard that you're a superior master, so you must be brave. But how far will that attitude take you? Click. The team leader pressed one of the 2 buttons on the terminal. With a frequency line appearing on the monitor, a warning sound was heard. Beep. 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 It was the sound of a detector. The team leader spoke with a smile on his face. Can you hear that? That's the sound of your death. At that time, Superintendent Nung Do-myung, who was next to him, reached out with a gesture to pause. Jeom Jong-so. Why did you make this choice? At the sorrowful question from Nung Dumyang, Baek Jong-so answered in a loud voice. Is the man who took my mother as collateral really asking that? You're a fool. Nung Dumyang shook his head. At the sound of the terminal, Baek Jong-so asked in a low voice. What kind of trick is this? Trick? This is the thing you asked for. What? Baek Jong-so was shocked. If his words were true, then they currently had the terminal which could control the nanobomb in his body. Seeing Baek Jong-so scared, Nung Dumyang continued. We secured research from MS Stupid Bastard. Did you think that we would let you go so easily? I can't. You made a code to unlock the bomb? Baek Jong-so couldn't hide his shock. They always said they were trying without elaborating, so he thought the Bureau gave up on him. However, if his words were true, the public security was really trying to disarm the nanobomb. Do you realize the mistake you made? Nung Dumyang asked Baek Jong-so, who was confused. I'm sorry. If you hadn't strayed off the path, such trouble wouldn't be here. Actually, one thing was untrue. In the file sent by the director, there was only the code to detonate the bomb, not disarm it. When he asked if the code could disarm it, the director said it would take time. It was because they had just managed to secure the bomb's frequency. But this alone was enough to shake Baek Jong-so. I will give you a chance though. Destroy the dantian of the person next to you and redeem yourself. Baek Jong-so's face hardened at those words. With his life on the line, they were asking him to betray someone. You. What are you saying? The order came from above to destroy you. As your identity has been discovered by the 6 road toys, you are of no use to us. Besides, you betrayed us. That. I don't want to hear your excuses. But after reflecting on the past, I decided that I'll ignore the order from my superiors and give you a chance. If your loyalty is proven, I will try to get the higher-ups to reconsider. Giving me a chance? Shouldn't you be alive to see your mother? Are you going to die first? Despite his soft words, it was nothing less than a threat. Grunt. Baek Jong-so was unable to hold back his anger. Despite being a member of the Bureau, Nung Dumyang had the tongue of a snake. From the first time they met, he knew that he was being pushed into a pit that couldn't be climbed up. You don't have a choice. GM Jong-so. The answer has been decided. A smile crept across his face. Baek Jong-so turned his head and looked at Chen Yoan. This man was like a god to the members of the Sky Demon Order. And this man was his only hope to see the truth behind the sudden dissolution of the Black Sky Company. If I sacrifice this person to save my life, will I get to see my mother? He didn't have to think. He was the head of the Pure Kit clan, which was under the Great Sky Demon Order. Tremble. Shaking in anger, he sent a message to Chen Yoan. A voice full of determination. Lord Chen Ma. It looks like things are going to be tough. Since you're Chen Ma, you will be able to get out of this place. So please rescue my pitiful mother. There were no nanobombs in Chen Yoan's body, which was why Chen Yoan would be able to escape. Forgive me for the rudeness I have shown. When that was done, Baek Jong-so shouted. Keep your promise. At that, Nung Dumyang smiled. I promise. I will risk my honor for your life. Go on and destroy him. At that, the team leader, Go, put his finger on the terminal and shouted at Chen Yoan. Move even a little, and you'll explode. If you don't want to die, don't even try to move a hair. Baek Jong-so slowly approached Chen Yoan. And energy concentrated on his hand. Now. Shrek. A small dagger came out of the sleeve of Baek Jong-so. At that moment, he quickly turned and threw it at Nung Dumyang. You need to be killed. The dagger loaded with energy reached the head of Nung Dumyang at a tremendous speed. It was then. Visor. Before it pierced his head, someone struck away the dagger. It was a surprise attack, yet the curly-haired man next to Nung Du-myung was able to block it. "How dare you?" Team leader Go flinched at the sudden attack and tried to press the button. Baek Jong-so, who failed, closed his eyes. His whole body was gripped in fear as he knows how the nanobomb explodes. Path. Then, someone took the terminal. The curly-haired man. Team leader Go was trying to protest, but the man handed the terminal to Nung Du-myung and said, "We aren't in a hurry, Superintendent. Give him to me." Chuck. The person he pointed to was Chen Yo-won. Nung Du-myung was speechless as he was still in shock because of the dagger which came for him suddenly. "It has been a while since I've had a serious battle with a warrior in Shenyang. After all, we have the detonation code. Why hurry?" The eyes of the curly-haired man were filled with joy. He was a man who was eager to fight from the beginning. "This man isn't under my control." Nung Du-myung nodded his head. "Huh. SRRNG." When permission was granted, the curly-haired man pulled out his sword. It was made of some alloy rather than iron. Whoa. When the man released his energy, a blue sword chi formed across the sword. Just looking at it was enough to know the man was a superior master. Goo. Whoa. What energy! Exclamation flowed out of the mobile strikers' mouths. They, too, learned martial arts, but they were still shocked at the sight, which was rare to witness in Shenyang. The man approached Chen Yo-won and said, "I heard that you are a superior master too. Hoo. To meet a criminal with the same level of skills as me in Shenyang, I'm so lucky, right?" His voice seemed elated. The energy felt from Chen Yo-won's body was of the supermaster level. As his internal energy couldn't be sensed, he thought he should be equal to or a little higher than the supermaster level. "Don't be wary of the detonator or machine guns. No one will disturb us while we play." Shoo. After a certain distance was obtained, the curly-haired man took a stance. He had no intention of underestimating his opponent. He just wanted to enjoy the fight. "You seem nervous, so let me make the first move." Fat. In an instant, he moved in front of Chen Yo-won. With a splendid trajectory, the blue sword chi tried to cut Chen Yo-won. It was then. "Play with yourself. Grab. HMP." Before the sword could touch him, Chen Yo-won grabbed the curly-haired man's face. What strength? Bewildered, the man readjusted and tried to cut Chen Yo-won's hand. Clench. His head shattered and splattered like a watermelon. Unable to scream, the man whose head was shattered staggered and fell down like a broken doll. Thud. The inside of the abandoned factory was stained with silence at what happened. The superior master, their trump card, met a tragic death in the blink of an eye. It was shocking. Such a talker. Shake. Chen Yo-won shook and wiped the blood off his hands. Eik. Team leader, Go immediately shouted at Nung Du-myung. Superintendent. Press it. Quickly. Nung Du-myung, who was shocked, came back to reality. If this was the level of a monster who could take down a superior master in a second, then machine guns wouldn't work on him. There was no time to think about anything else. Tack. Biting his lip, he shook his head and placed his finger on the button. Baek Jong-so closed his eyes in despair. No matter how hard he tried, his end was coming. Damn it. Press it before he moves. The team leader screamed in fear. In the end, the button was pressed. It was then. Bang. 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 Small explosions were heard everywhere. Some were heard near team leader Go and Nung Du-myung. Baek Jong-so's eyes fluttered. What is this? Baek Jong-so was the one who was supposed to be killed, but he was standing there intact, with a puzzled expression. He couldn't understand. Drip. Team leader Go's head was bleeding, blood was dripping down from his eyes, nose, mouth, and ears. A faint trail of smoke was rising from it too. Team leader Go. Thud. The body fell to the floor and trembled. It wasn't just him. Thud. 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 Mobile strikers on the first and second floors collapsed at random. A total of 12 people fell. Ahayan. Yakchong. The mobile strikers standing next to them grabbed them. The men who monitored their conditions mumbled. Shit. He is dead. They were not breathing. Baek Jong-so turned his head and looked at Chen Yo-won. Baek Jong-so was the one who was supposed to die. What is this? Before he could even finish, Nung Do-myung looked at both of them and shouted. What the hell did you do? Chen Yo-won answered him as if it wasn't a big deal. Good things should be shared. Isn't that right? Chapter 27. Portent. Part 5. Around 2 hours ago. Nano. You succeeded. At the fingertips of Chen Yo-won, Baek Jong-so was lying in the large room on his back, because his blood points were sealed. Although it couldn't be explained, Chen Yo-won succeeded in collecting the nanobombs inside Baek Jong-so's body. If it is absorbed into the user's body, disarming the nanobombs with the nanomachines is possible. Absorb and disarm? Since it is a nano device with just one simple frequency and code, it can be done. Then could we take the nanobombs and use them? It is possible. Oh ho, really? The nanobombs from Baek Jong-so's body fell short compared to the future, which made it easy for Nano to control them. The team leader and the mobile strikers, who had fallen to the ground, were killed by the nanobombs Chen Yo-won injected into them. Despite it looking like torture, this was the reason why Chen Yo-won put his finger into their flesh. I didn't use them all. Their bodies didn't need to turn into dust. By sending an appropriate amount of nanobombs to the heart or brain, it was possible to effectively kill the enemy. Their deaths were the result of that. This can't be. It was hard to believe for Nung Do-myung, who wasn't aware of such nanotechnology. Even the technical support team of the Public Security Bureau, who studied the nanobombs from Baek Jong-so's body for nearly a month, were unable to find anything remotely important. In that way, the MS technology was at the pinnacle of current technology. Team leader Go. Nung Do-myung looked at the deceased team leader. If the man's words were true, then team leader Go had dug his grave with his own hands. Let's continue what we were doing. Tack. Chen Yo-won took a step forward. It was one simple step, but it was strong enough to overpower Nung Do-myung, who was gripped by fear. Surprised, Nung Do-myung stepped back and shouted. Don't move. Can't you see the machine guns aiming at you? Clank. The mobile strikers all aimed for Chen Yo-won at that cry. The red laser points from the guns aimed at Chen Yo-won's head and heart. 12 people died, but there were 50 more alive. TCH. Baek Jong-so grunted as he looked at the machine guns aiming for them. Even he, who is at the end of the Supermaster level, can only avoid bullets when he watched which direction the bullets are coming from. But this is too many. Damn it. One problem after another. A typical gun can fire bullets at a speed of 300 to 500 meters per second, but machine guns can fire bullets at 1000 meters per second. Such speed is too high to handle. And the destructive power is evident. It would be difficult to avoid or block such bullets, no matter how strong a warrior was, especially when 50 people were surrounding them. Even if he is Chun Ma this. He wasn't confident anymore. The present era was an era where Murim warriors used firearms. Unlike Chen Youan, who was still calm, Baek Jong-so was nervous and tense as he kept trying to calm his heart. Right. I shouldn't let myself get swayed. Superscript 1. The mobile strikers still had an advantage. With the number of guns they were aiming, and they only had 2 opponents. Plus, Nung Du-myung also learned martial arts. He's keeping a poker face, but that's just a bluff. As long as he hasn't lost his reasoning after seeing this, he'll back down. How can one person handle this many machine guns? Nung Du-myung thought it would be difficult to avoid a shower of bullets, even if the opponent was a superior master. With that certainty, he calmed down. However, tack. Chen Youan once again took a step towards Nung Du-myung. Has he gone insane? 50 machine guns were aiming at him, yet he showed no sign of fear. Do you want to die? Stop. Stop now. Step. Step. You. He kept walking while ignoring his words, making Nung Du-myung confused. And then he raised his hand and pointed towards Chen Youan. That was the signal. All the mobile strikers tried to pull their triggers. It's dangerous. Baek Jong-so hurriedly jumped in front of Chen Youan. In that fleeting moment. You are one annoying man. Chen Youan raised his palm and then slightly turned it. And thud. 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 Quack. Kook. Yuk. Before the triggers were pulled, the mobile strikers who were aiming their guns fell to the ground in unison. They all fell over. Around 50 people, no exceptions. And my body. Shit. They couldn't hide their shock. An unknown energy forced their bodies down. What are you all doing? Shoot. Nung Du-myung shouted, but not a single person pulled the trigger. They were all on the floor with the feeling of something crushing them. How could they shoot in such a circumstance? Creep. For a second, Nung Du-myung felt goosebumps rise all over his body. He didn't realize it, but the flow of energy around him was as if he was in the eye of the storm. It was a level he could never fathom. What kind of human can even have such een? He never experienced it. The internal energy he was feeling was so overpowering that his own energy felt like a grain of salt compared to it. Ike. At that time, a few mobile strikers on the second floor tried to pull the triggers despite being pushed to the ground, enduring the pain of being crushed. However, Chen Youan lowered his hand even further. Crack! With a cracking sound, the mobile strikers had fallen. The sound of bones cracking could be heard loud and clear as they were in an abandoned factory. Crack! Crack! Quack! Ack! Screams rang out. But they didn't last long. Before long, only 3 people were standing inside the abandoned factory. Thud. And one of them, Nung Du-myung, fell on his butt. He wanted to step back and run away, but he was too terrified to even move a single step. Hick. With fear in his eyes, he looked at Chen Youan. Using the tracking device, they had set a trap. Oh, how did this happen? The detonator of the nanobomb, and the agents of the public security. He even brought in Special Inspector Jun Yi-myung, one of the top 7 warriors of the public security, just in case there was an emergency. But he was killed so easily. Monster. Baek Jong-so agreed with that. He knew that Chen Youan was strong because of what he saw inside the 6 Road Toys building, but he still didn't expect this level of resourcefulness and skill. Amazing. What overwhelming ability to overturn the situation. Now that the situation was settled, there was only one thing to do. Fat. Baek Jong-so ran over to Nung Du-myung, who was on the ground, and kicked him in the stomach. Puck. Quack. Du-myung, who was hit in the abdomen with a kick loaded with energy, coughed up blood. Grabbing his collar, Baek Jong-so shouted. My mother. Where is my mother? Puck. Baek Jong-so's fist struck the man's cheek. And it was only the beginning. Where is she, you bastard? Puck. Puck. Quack. The anger he was holding back wasn't something he could control anymore. Baek Jong-so hit him until his face went limp. Although not all of the hits were imbued with energy, as he kept getting hit, Nung Dumyang's face was swollen. Huh. Say it. Where is my mother? If you don't want to die, answer me. Baek Jong-so grabbed him and shook him. However, the answer which came from Nung Dumyang was different. How, what is your identity? A guy like you is an unregistered Miran warrior? His swollen eyes were looking at Chen Yoan. He had lost, but he at least wanted his doubts to be resolved. Chen Yoan approached him. What good would knowing that do when you are in this state? Huh? Move. Why yes. As Baek Jong-so moved, Chen Yoan shoved his finger into Nung Dumyang's shoulder. Puck. Quack. And he pulled out his finger. I put nanobombs in your body. What? He couldn't understand. He just poked into the flesh with his finger, but what was this about nanobombs being injected? What nonsense, snap. Chen Yoan snapped his fingers. Pang. A small bang was heard. Intense pain began to come from the bottom of his left hand. Quack. Shocked, Nung Dumyang looked at his palm. The middle of his palm was tanned, as if it was burning inside. What is this? Your body holds 1,000 nanobombs. They're distributed evenly throughout your body through your blood vessels. 500 are in your brain. What? His eyes trembled. He couldn't dismiss it as a lie, as the pain in his palm was proof of it. How can th? You don't need to know that. There's only one thing you need to do, answer us. Tack. Pang. When Chen Yoan snapped his fingers again, the pain hit his right hand. Ach. The pain of something exploding inside his body. As his body convulsed, he cursed Chen Yoan. Shit. You fucking bastard. Chen Yoan ignored that and spoke. From now on, we will detonate one bomb after the other. The swollen eyes of Nung Dumyang went wide. Chen Yoan had said that there were a total of 1,000 nanobombs in his body. And he detonated 2 so far, which meant 998 are left. Sigh. Even Baek Jong-so, who hated him for taking away his mother, frowned. If it was him, he would rather commit suicide than suffer in such a slow manner. You are vicious. I won't ask anything. I'll just explode one every 5 seconds. A hat. Let's see how tightly sealed those lips are. With that, Chen Yoan spread out his hand, and folded one finger after another. Every time another finger folded, the expression on Dumyang's face was nothing short of a spectacle. As the last of the 5 was about to fold, he shouted. Wait. Hold up. I don't know. I really don't know, as it was decided by the higher. Snap. Pang. A nanobomb in his right foot exploded. Ack. Fuck. How painful it must have been. Still he calmed himself. Quack, really, don't, no. Chen Yoan didn't care, and started folding his fingers again. Seeing that, Nung Dumyang began to break out in cold sweat. He was at a loss for words because of Chen Yoan's expression as he folded his fingers without even blinking an eye. This man will really do it. He was trained to handle torture. However, it was the first time he was being psychologically pressured. This wasn't a horrible pain, rather, it was a slow way of driving him to the edge of sanity. He is not evil, he is the devil himself. Now, one finger was left again. At that moment, Nung Dumyang shouted. I will speak. Please, please, stop. A declaration of surrender came out of his mouth. Baek Jongso, who was watching it anxiously, smiled. Say it. Where is my mother? Before that, guarantee one thing. Nung Dumyang wasn't going to believe Chen Yoan. After he answered, he was sure that Chen Yoan would kill him. Are you haggling with me? In shock, Nung Dumyang shouted. Wait. Wait. It's a place, you can't go without me. What do you mean? As he answered the question from Chen Yoan, he spoke cautiously. I'm not cheating you. It's not a place you can go just because you know where it is. You need to make a request to the Defense Department. Flinch. At that moment Chen Yoan frowned and stood up. He looked northwest. What, this wave? A tremendous energy, strong enough to shock Chen Yoan, was spreading out. It felt like it was shaking the space. It was then. Whining. Whining. Sounds from outside the factory. It wasn't just a sound near the factory, it was a siren all throughout Shenyang. With a shocked expression, Nung Dumyang said. No way, at a time like this? The Defense Department said that it would take 3 days. He wasn't the only one shocked. Baek Jongso spoke with trembling eyes. Gate warning.